Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hunter Loves Voice Play podcast, Geoff edition. And today, let's all sit back and talk about murder. You heard me right. We are going to go down the line of all the songs that Geoff has done which mention death or murder concepts. The list is long and distinguished, so let's get right on into it, shall we? This idea comes from a brilliant and comical suggestion from one of my dear friends and viewers. Once they sent me the idea, I knew right then and there that I had to cover this. I learned something new about our boy Geoff. Not only is he into horror movies, but he's also into storyteller songs that have an outcome that wasn't the greatest for the main protagonist or antagonist, depending on the subject matter. So first on our list is, drumroll please, Saddle Up. I mean, you know that this song is just perfect. Some of the crimes is murder, robbery, cattle rustling, escaping from jail, and evading capture. So, the lyrics, as I have them pulled up right in front of me here, this song was sung by the incredible Thurl Ravenscroft. I mean, how much better can you get? And written by Stan Jones. And I love the writing, personally. So, Gabriel's trumpet blasts the morn. Saddle up, you led to the leather born. Your graves will yield their sleeping prey. This is the dawning of the judgment day. The list is long. You'll hear their names. Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Johnny Ringo, Curly Bill, Wild Bill Hickok, Geronimo, Sittin' Bull, and Sam Bass. And I dove into the backstory of some of these dudes, and most of them, well, they mainly seen the end of a bullet, a noose, or dying on the battlefield. And then as you're reading the lyrics, it basically kind of talks about the Archangel Gabriel is blasting the morn. This is the dawning of the judgment day. So that basically means that it's like they're going to be judged no matter what. Yeah, let me see. Like, saddle up and ride through the golden gates. The judge will call you one by one, and nary a man is going to hold a gun. He's calling those he knows should ride, just as they lived and just as they died. Some are doomed by the judge's word to the ghostly riders and the devil's herd. So it talks about all of these outlaws that have just been doing a lot of terrible, terrible things. But it's also showing, the history of the Old West. And if this song doesn't have you in your boots, my favorite lyric in there is the ghostly riders and the devil's herd. And that would take us to our next song in our catalog. If you read into the backstory of like Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Johnny Ringo, Curly Bill, Wild Bill Hickok, Geronimo, Sitting Bull, Sam Bass, you would be spending at least maybe 2 hours learning about these dudes because they were menacing. And the whole backstory of each of them is very long, and it's very, you just read it and you're like, these dudes, no wonder they're infamous for what they were doing. I mean, it's like, the Old West, man. The Old West. It's why it's part of history. These dudes were legends for the wrong reasons. Alright, let's get into our next song here. And our next one is Ghost Riders. Crimes include cattle rustling and animal cruelty. A senseless, ghoulish tragedy which took place in Crosby County, Texas. A storm begins to brew in a camp, which scares the horses and riders as they chase cattle. This chase leads the cattle to fall to their death by falling off a cliff, leaving 700 cattle dead. Living cowboys needed to change their ugly ways and do the right thing. If not, they too would spend eternity in hell, working the devil's herd of cows. And this song is super popular, and it, has been changed throughout the years. So many people have covered it, so many people have made changes to it, and it is basically called the Stampede Mesa, was the legend around the song. And it basically, according to TexasHillCountry.com, it was the saddest, most evil, not to mention the most famous one in the country. It all began like any other cattle drive should have back in the fall of 1889. The weather had been less than cooperative. The cowboys were worn to a frazzle, and the herd had been restless the entire trip. Late one night, as they began climbing the slope to the top of the range near some water, a storm began brewing. They planned to set up camp just over the bridge near the water. Sawyer, the trail boss, rode ahead to check out the surroundings. He was shocked to see a brand new homestead perched right on top of the hill. He'd taken this route hundreds of times without incident, but now this was blocking his entire herd from crossing. It would take hours to go around it. So then this guy basically gets pissed off, and then he he waves a blanket high into the air to create a stampede, and the cattle are just going nuts. Horses and riders, some without, they start running. Obediently, they followed behind. Sawyer's screaming. He's whipping at the animals, and like lightning is flashing everywhere. And the cattle are they're spooked. They're terrified. And then they hurl straight through the farm housing, crushing everyone and everything in its path. No one could hear the screams of the innocent as they raged through. So that's scary in and of itself. Like just a cattle stampede and you hear no screams. It's just terrible. Loud thunder and dark skies made the terrified herd keep running until they ran off nearby cliffs to their deaths. Horses holding the cow hands following behind. And then Sawyer, he surveys the whole thing, and he realizes that there's 700 dead cattle. There's cowpokes and horses, and then like the dude has no remorse. Like he's not remorseful of anything that just happened. He rounds up the remaining 300 cattle and hits the trail. Like he just basically is like, okay, we lost 700, no big deal. We still have 300. Let's go. And he never worked again. No one would work for him, and not a soul would hire him, even for like the smallest tasks. He basically got betrayed by everybody, and basically everybody was like, no, like we don't want to deal with you. So then he crawled into a whiskey bottle and was never seen again. So I'm basically saying that he probably like drank himself to death, most likely. And then the following season, another trail boss and his men bedded down their herd on top of that same mesa, which had been cleared of any previous devastation or debris. The skies were perfectly clear, and in the early hours of the morning, the herd charged. Again, most of them and 4 other cowboys riding horses fell off the cliffs to their deaths. But this trail boss was overcome with guilt and grief. He turned to the bottle and was never heard from again. So then this guy had remorse, because he was like, oh my god. He's like, I killed all of these cows for absolutely nothing. And of course, like, stories just came on going. Like, everybody thinks that the environment was something that had scared all of that cattle, mostly putting an end to cattle driving in that part of Texas. Only lone horsemen and curiosity seekers pass through there now. I mean, they said that ghostly counterparts up in the sky had been witnessed, along with claims of blood-curdling screams and sounds of angry hooves of phantom longhorns. Like, can you just imagine? You're going about your day, and all of a sudden, you just kind of look at the sky, and you're like, I see a phantom longhorn just like running straight at me in the sky. And they swear today that the haunting is in that part of the Texas sky. And then Stan Jones wrote the Western Melody in 1948. It was set to an old Irish song called Johnny I Hardly Knew Ye. And the legend has spread throughout the world through music, which, like everybody I think knows, like the Johnny Cash. Like, there's just been so many. Burl Ives. Yeah, like there's been more than 50 singers that have recorded this thing. Like, it's the most composed Western song of its time. And like it's a different type. Like, everybody has their own twist on the tale. Like, people will take the Ghost Rider as like Nicolas Cage, as like somebody who was a human, and like, he was a demon, something like that. It's just like a Ghost Rider shadow can be seen on the face in the sunset. Like, there's some of them that are just like, it's an angry chief who placed a curse on the town. like there is just so many different stories about it. And it's crazy knowing that. And like even the Highwaymen covered this, like everybody covered this song at some point in time. And it is something else. It's fun to read about. And like, of course, like when you read the lyrics, like, for he saw the riders coming hard and heard their mournful cry. In that sense, you just kind of, like, you're exhausted because you're just like, you're out in the heat, you've been chasing cattle all day, and then like all of a sudden you just hear this mournful cry of like this phantom voice, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and like you're seeing that, like, I mean, if the legend is even true, I mean, I would be scared for my life. I would crap my pants and then just, get on my horse and get the hell out of there. It's crazy. But yeah, Ghost Riders is probably one of the best so far. Moving on. Next in our lineup, we have Big Bad John. So, as the song goes, Big Bad John, it's basically telling the story about this 6'6", 245-pound weighing dude that was broad at the shoulder and narrow at the hip, and everybody knew you didn't give no lip to Big John, because as the song goes, he's kind of just a drifter. He didn't know where he was going to be calling home. He was very quiet, shy, and if he spoke, the only thing that you would say to him is just hi. He got into a fight over a Cajun queen, and a crash and blow from a huge right hand sent a Louisiana fellow to the promised land. The crime committed here is basically murder, because if he sent a Louisiana fellow to the promised land, then that means he ain't coming back. But this song kind of has a little bit of redemption towards it, because like the story of him killing somebody is basically like an alleged story. And so he's working in a mine with a bunch of other miners, and then the mine starts to collapse. And John is basically like, you know what? It don't matter. It's like, I am going to save everybody here. So he grabs a sagging timber, he gives out a groan, and he just stands there completely alone, holding on to this wall of this mine. And once people realize that there's light, 20 men scramble out of the mine, but the only left person down there to save was Big John. And then they tried, and then there was nothing but smoke and gas. Once they realized that John was gone, they just placed a marble stand in front of the mine. They didn't reopen it. And these few words are written on that stand. At the bottom of this mine lies a big, big man, Big John. So that is so eerie, but it's also partially reality, because there were so many people that when they were mining, digging for gold or digging for, just anything that would make people rich, whether it was coal, whether it was gold, whether it was, like potash or something like that, it always came at a cost. I mean, even with like the make of railroads, that was also another thing too, that it was just like, you basically were in that business to either die, or you'd be lucky if you even came out of there alive, or at least maybe the same as from when you went in. I love the storytelling in this one, and then also like when Geoff did his version, he definitely made it a little bit of like hip-hop storytelling, a little bit. Had a little bit of a jive to it. So I always appreciate that one. So that's the story of Big Bad John. Let's keep moving. And finally, to conclude this collection of Western-based murder, death, songs. We have one more after this. We have You Don't Mess Around with Jim. So the crimes committed have been murder. I absolutely love the storytelling in this song. Jim Croce, rest his soul. He really knew how to tell the story of a man who's just essentially plays a really bloody game of pool. All while scatting. Like, don't tug on the Superman's cape. Don't spit into the wind. You will regret it. Not only will you get spit on your face, I think as far as Jim was concerned, he was just like Big Bad John. He was one of those people that you didn't mess around with, but ended up getting his comeuppance near the end when he met Willie McCoy. It's always interesting because it's like, like there's always going to be somebody like that that's going to try to have like that masculine form about him, and it's like macho man, and it's like, well, there's going to be another guy that's going to be able to take you on, because Jim Walker was big and dumb as a man can come, but he was stronger. Like, he was strong, or brawn yes, brains no. And they called him boss because it was like, you just don't want to mess with him at all. And then, of course, he meets a country boy by the name of Willie McCoy, who also shoots pool. He was looking for the king of 42nd Street. And then last week, he took all of this guy's money. And then it's like, well, this may sound silly, but I want that money back. And then it's like, Jack, don't you know about this guy? Like, don't you know about Jim? Like, you know that you don't want to mess around with him. And then it's like everything falls silent. Jimmy comes off the street, and I guess according to Willie McCoy, he had the upper hand. He cut him in numerous places, 100 places, and he was shot in a couple more places. And everybody was saying something different after Big Jim had hit the floor. And it's like, you don't mess around with Slim instead of you don't mess around with Jim because Jim is dead. Slim is now like the top-notch pool shooter of the story. And it's so interesting. And it also, because Geoff he left out one of the phrases that Jim Croce used. The one that says Big Jim's got his hat. Find out where it's at, and it's not hustling people strange to you, even if you do got a 2-piece custom-made pool cue. So that just kind of says that it's like, if his pool cue was custom-made, how many people did he have to kill to get that specific pool cue, Like, it's like, how much money was he getting committing murder? And it wasn't even Jim's fault. It was Slim. So it's like, it's very interesting. And as far as like Geoff is concerned, these songs are all just storytelling about murder and death. It's just, it's always seemed strange to me. And like, I'm going to go back to Big Bad John here for a minute, because I had never heard of the song. And then once it gets to the middle, where they say that it's like, there's one more down there to save, Big Bad John, and then it's like, holy crap, he died. Like, it's crazy. Okay, we're gonna get into the last one here. And finally, we have Big Iron by the legendary Marty Robbins. This one is quite a tale. Like, it is a very long, story-written song about a guy who walks into Aquafria, an outlaw, and, it's like, he ain't saying nothing. And apparently he was very intimidating, because nobody was like, I'm not talking to you. Like, this dude is scary. Mostly because he had a big iron gun on his hip. And that's intimidating enough, because, a lot of people just have a very tiny pistol. And then you just see this big iron on his hip, and you're like, size matters, kind of thing. He rides into town from the south side, and, everybody's like, he's an outlaw loose and running. So it's like he's running from the law. He was here to do some business. So it's like he's basically kind of coming in and like wanting to rob this town, essentially. But there was also one that had already lived in the town, and his name was Texas Red. And Texas Red was basically kind of the main outlaw, if you will. When people tried to kill him, they died trying to take him on. He was only 24 years old, and he had notches on his pistol that was about 20 people. I know they say 1 in 19 more, but that's just an easy way of saying 20. And then there was... So the other one is from Arizona, but they're like, yeah, he's not going to last long. He came here to take an outlaw back alive or maybe dead, and he said it didn't matter, he was after Texas Red. And, of course, like, Texas Red is having none of it. So it's like, well, it's like, I've already killed 20 people. It's like, what do you think that this outlaw is going to try, to try to take me? It's like 20 men had already died, but, I'm going to add 21 to it because the ranger with the big iron on his hip is going to die. And then it's like the morning passed. It's time for them to meet. It was 20 past 11. They walked out in the street. Everybody was holding their breath. Like, they're just like, oh God, like, good, bad, and the ugly, standoff, that type of thing. They knew this handsome ranger was about to meet his death. So, like, they're already knowing that Texas Red is gonna kill him. Like, it's plain as day. 40 feet between them. Texas Red, but he had made a fatal slip. Apparently, the other ranger that was in the town, his aim was deadly, with the big iron on his hip. It was over in a moment, and the folks gathered round. There before them lay the body of the outlaw on the ground. He might have went on living, but he made one fatal slip. He tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip. So, Texas Red got killed by this outlaw, this youth that had just walked into town and was like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. I'm already running from the law, and nobody's gonna, kill me. So, I think that's about it for all of the songs that talk about murder and death. Go check out Geoff's versions of these songs, because not only is Geoff a great storyteller, but also his arrangement style is just... It's just amazing. But I just hope if he's looking for a side hustle, he just continues arranging music. It doesn't have to be his own. It doesn't have to be, voice play. As long as he's arranging for our other artists and still doing music. Because, where his heart truly lies. Because his arrangement style is just... It always gets better and better and better. And I mean, I know that his arrangements get very more complicated as he goes on, but he just really seems to enjoy it. And like sometimes with ones like Unshaken, he kind of just looks back at it and it's like, I really like doing this one. So it's like, Geoff, keep it going, man. Just keep arranging stuff. You don't have to do it for yourself. You don't have to do it for voice play, but do it for somebody else. And I think you'll be rewarded handsomely with views and Patreon money, because I'll still be supporting him on Patreon if that's still a thing 10-20 years from now. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. Leave me a suggestion on what you want to hear next. If you want me to go and tackle maybe voice play songs that have a certain theme, or maybe like even fantasy, or like something like that. I think that even though these ones are a lot longer to do, and the editing is very tedious, but I enjoy it. And it's also a different arc, because it's like I'm not just doing a separate song, I'm doing a group of them, and I'm also talking about like a certain subject in between. So that's always fun. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.